say if you cross this bridge at night, you might just meet a hoofed demon. But before the legend of the Goatman, there was a man, a bridge, and a brutal injustice that officially never happened. This week, we're taking a chilling trip to Denton, Texas, to uncover the haunting truths and frustrating blanks behind Goatman's Bridge and the dark entities who might just be guarding its secrets on the Parallax Podcast.
Hi, Willow.
Hi, Karissa. Did you enjoy me trying to finish that intro with Impy licking like my eyeball?
Yes. For those not understanding what's happening right now, she has like not a parrot on her shoulder, like a black cat on her shoulder that has been like Literally. All over her through our recording sessions, like the previous one and this one.
Oh my god. So it's my new kitten. Her name is Impy. My husband named her Impy or Impanada. I-M-P Anada.
I can't believe he changed her name.
Well, that's how I knew we were going to keep her, because he changed her name because he never liked Toffee. And then he was like, we're going to call her Impy. And I said, all right, cool. But Impy is a black kitten, and she is in her zoomy stage right now. And so she's been crawling all over me because she's obsessed with me, I guess. I don't know. And I just finished off like the last few sentences of that intro with her on my shoulder, literally licking my eyeball. So
yeah, you did well. I watched. That was interesting.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Tonight, we're treating the Florida coast beaches for the dusty back roads of North Texas. We're heading to Denton County, to a specific secluded spot where the pavement ends and the legends begin. Forget what you might have heard about the other Goatman stories. We're talking about the haunted bridge and how it bears its name. But this is an episode request. So a shout out to Hayden, Brandy, and Sean, who are listening to this episode as we cover the Goatman's Bridge in Denton, Texas. I have a little side quest. I have connections to Denton because when Dylan...
Jeez. What do you not have connections to?
I mean, I don't know. We haven't got there yet. So when Dylan and I were dating and he was stationed in Wichita Falls, I went to visit him. And so we think that he misread the words of what he was allowed to do on the weekends. So I think he looked at it and thought he was supposed to go outside of a 100-mile radius. I think he was supposed to stay within a 100-mile radius. So we went to Denton, Texas, because that was on the threshold of the 100-mile radius. And it took us like a couple hours to get there. And so in this car ride, though, and this was over 20 years ago, because we'll be married 20 years in April.
Oh, my goodness.
And we didn't know about the bridge back then, although I probably would have taken a little side quest to that.
Yeah, to the bridge.
But we listened to Dane Cook the whole car ride from Wichita Falls to Denton, Texas. That's my connection to Denton. But anyways.
Does Dylan have a little bit of like dyslexia going on?
No.
Where he's
read extremely it smart. That he just must have read that wrong back then, making sure he was trying to follow the rules. So, nope, not at all.
Oh,
okay, so Willow is going to give us the one section of this story, and then I'm going to take us down the legend and offer some interesting thought processes for it.
Interesting information. All right.
Yes. All right, take it away, Willow.
Prepared to get spooky with me? All right, so if you take the long road out of Denton, Texas, past a suburban sprawl that keeps pressing outward like a restless tide, you'll find a narrow turnoff that most people miss. No major sign points the way. No bright modern lamppost illuminates the path. Just a strip of asphalt that dwindles into gravel, then to dirt, then at last into the quiet, breath-holding darkness of the woods. And in those woods stands a bridge. Iron-framed, rust-skinned, and silent. Some call it Old Alton Bridge. Most call it something else. Goatman's Bridge. It's a place where teenagers dare each other to cross at night. A place paranormal investigators descend upon with EMF meters, night vision cameras, and bravado that usually dissolves by morning. A place that has become the center of Texas folklore. Spread about, filmed, logged, live-streamed, prayed over, feared. But behind every legend... I love that little, yeah. But behind every legend, there's the question that keeps me up at night. Not, is it haunted? But rather, why did the stories start? Was there a crime? Was there blood spilled on this bridge before the stories ever took root? Tonight, we're going to walk that bridge together. One step for the legend, one for the truth and one for the murky space between. The most famous story of Goatman's Bridge starts deceptively simply with a man. They call him Oscar Washburn, a goat herder, a businessman, and a father. He was also a black man living in a time and place where success, in the eyes of some, was seen as offense. The legend says Oscar raised the finest goats in Denton County, selling milk, cheese, and textiles. Word spread so widely that he hung a hand-painted sign just off the bridge, "This way to the Goatman." A charming gesture, maybe even a little bit proud. But according to the story, that sign was the beginning of the end. Because the tale says that a group of men, cloaked in the infamy of the Ku Klux Klan, saw that sign as an insult. They saw that a black man had dared to flourish. And in a country where racial violence stained the soil long before stories of ghosts ever did, the legend claims they planned to make him disappear. One humid night, torches glimmering like the eyes of an approaching beast, they came for him, dragged him from his house, bound his hands, beat him until blood darkened the dirt. And then they dragged him to the bridge, Old Alton Bridge, the iron bones of it rattling in the night wind. They tied a noose. They pushed him over. They watched his body fall. Silence. Then a splash. The rope pulled taut. And then, as the legend insists, something happened that even hatred couldn't explain. Because when the men looked over the side, expecting to see his dangling corpse, Oscar Washburn wasn't there. The rope still swung, emptied of its victim. The river beneath was calm, and the men panicked. Some versions of the story say that they ran straight to Oscar's home and killed everyone inside, his wife, his children, even his livestock, hoping to erase every trace of him. Others say those men fled in terror, whispering that the devil himself had come to reclaim his own. But one thing stays constant. After that night, something began haunting the bridge. And I'm going to give a quick little bloop or blurb of it, but I'm not going that deep into what haunts this bridge. But they say that hoof prints appeared in the dust, despite no goats being nearby. There were growls in the trees that echoed too low to be any known animal. Red eyes would glint in the dark like embers of an eternal fire, and figures, half man, half goat, would stand on the wooden planks of Old Alton Bridge long after midnight. A spirit seemed to be angered by his unjust death, or a demon drawn to bloodshed, or the Goatman himself returned for revenge. That's the story. That's the crime that anchors the legend. It's the tale that locals still whisper on cold nights when the woods seem a little too quiet. But here's the hard truth I have to tell you. There's no historical record of an Oscar Washburn. There's not one. Not in consensus logs, not in land deeds, not in tax lists, newspapers, birth certificates, death records, nothing. The crime that supposedly birthed the Goatman legend may not have happened at all. But then again, legends don't start from nothing. They start from fear, from memory, from a place trying to forget something it can't put into words. So what really happened? Or maybe the better question is, what could have happened? Now, I'm going to get into a little bit more explanation in a moment, but this was something that Karisa and I had actually talked about before we recorded tonight. The fact that, as I'm sure many of you already know, a lot of stories and histories and whatnot of a lot, honestly, of the African American culture, but even of multiple individuals and crimes against multiple individuals were erased or rewritten, especially in the deep, deep South. So there, of course, is a possibility that there was an individual with the name maybe even similar to Oscar Washburn, even if it's not the same. But we're going to go through some different theories of things that could have started this story and this particular legend, and things that could have happened to either spark this story or perhaps bring about some of the darkness that's been associated with the Goatman's Bridge. So, let's start with the simplest fact. Again, there's no evidence that a man named Oscar Washburn ever lived near Old Alton Bridge. Folklorists searched census records from the 1870s to the early 1900s, and they couldn't find a Washburn or a Goatman or even a black goat farmer in the region with any recorded business dealings. And people who succeeded economically in the 19th century Texas definitely showed up in records. So if he really was as successful as the legend says, it is quite surprising and shocking that we can't find any record of him anywhere.
You're stating success based on whose degree of success. His success.
This is financial success.
Right, but his financial success in the 1900s as a person of color could have been as simple as having a home and a successful farm that wasn't in dilapidation or wasn't being foreclosed by the bank. The fact that you were stepping outside of what most people of color were facing that day is successful. That is not the white man's success by terms of recording it. You know what I mean? It doesn't require necessarily an official documentation. I mean, there was systematic racism and discrimination, and if the KKK had stated they wanted him to be erased, here is a prime example of being erased from history. I can't hear you.
Sorry, letting Impy clean my face. The only thing with it, and I continue more, this isn't all that I have. I have more.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, I just want to make sure that people understand that people were totally erased back then.
It was interesting that they couldn't find any record whatsoever. But there is also, and again, I continue with this one too, there is no documented lynching at Old Alton Bridge, and the reason why I mention this is because Texas does have extensive lynching archives covering post-Civil War to early 20th century period. They do, unfortunately, even if they may not have done well to record the lives of many of these people, they certainly did everything they could to unfortunately record the deaths. However, it doesn't mean it didn't happen there. We just don't have a recording of it. That's it. The story does not appear in local history until the late 20th century. There's no newspaper mention, no oral histories, no family stories, nothing until it rises suddenly or abruptly in the late 1990s and early 2000s, right as paranormal TV shows begin exploring American ghost legends. Does that necessarily mean that someone made it up, or that it's a ghost tour guide embellishment, or it was invented to explain sightings that they couldn't describe? Folklorists believe it's something deeper. The Oscar Washburn legend fits a classic Southern folklore pattern known as the vengeful spirit of the wronged man, a narrative born from centuries of racial violence, injustice, and unmarked graves. Even if Washburn didn't exist, the type of tragedy described absolutely did. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, black farmers, business owners, and landowners across Texas were lynched, driven from towns, or murdered without any official record kept. Families vanished, farms vanished, and lives vanished. So maybe the legend didn't need to be literally true. Maybe it was symbolically true. Maybe Goatman's Bridge became a vessel for a collective memory this region never documented, but always carried. So if this crime, because it very well may have, but if it didn't happen, could another have? And that question leads us even deeper, because the Goatman legend may not have come from one event, but a mosaic of them. If Old Alton Bridge didn't become haunted because of a single lynching, what else may have sparked the legend? Let me take you through the possibilities, each unfortunately darker than the last. The first one is the abandoned town of Alton. Before Denton grew into a city it is today, there was Alton. And B's trying to play with my mouse now. Anyway, a settlement that rose and fell within just a few short decades. Court records from the 1850s say Alton was violent, lawless, and plagued with criminal activity. There were murders, shootings, disappearances, and even a jail so poorly constructed that prisoners simply walked out of it. When the town collapsed and people moved away, the land around the bridge was left dotted with unmarked graves. Pioneer graves, settler graves, and possibly graves belonging to people whose names never made it into any record books. Imagine the stories that died with them, the ones that no one ever told. People tend to say places are haunted when history refuses to speak clearly. The second theory is a mysterious death in the woods, a possible quote-unquote real Goatman. In the 1930s, locals reported an unidentified man seen wandering the woods near the bridge. He was seen shirtless, ragged, barefoot, muttering to himself, and, surprisingly, accompanied by several goats that followed him like the disciples of some forgotten shepherd god. People whispered that he wasn't quite right in the head. Some claimed he had escaped a nearby institution. Some say that he simply snapped after a lifetime of poverty. One afternoon, the goats returned to town, but the man didn't. A search party later found bones in the trees, large, scattered, and partially gnawed, as if by wild animals or something else. But this man had no name, no family, and no explanation for his death. Folklorists believe this may be the earliest, quote, Goatman, quotes, tied to the story tied to the region. Not a vengeful ghost, but a forgotten man whose identity eroded into myth. A tragedy transformed into a monster. The third theory is animal sacrifice and cult activity, which is of course, the 1970s and 1990s surge of satanic panic. Sheriff's logs and local police reports from the 1970s through the 1990s tell a startlingly consistent story. Something strange was happening in the woods. Investigators found animal carcasses arranged in ritual patterns, burned circles scorched into the ground, crude altars, symbols carved into tree trunks, and blood splattering rocks beneath the bridge. Most of it was likely bored teenagers dabbling in occult aesthetics, but some of it looked far too practiced. Locals, terrified, began telling their children the Goatman would take them if they stayed out too late. What begins as a warning often becomes legend, and what begins as a legend sometimes starts with a crime. The fourth theory would be the accidents on the bridge, a history of sudden deaths. Old Alton Bridge was built for horse-drawn wagons, not cars. And as the decades rolled forward, the bridge remained narrow, rusting, and precarious. Local records show car accidents, drownings, drunken missteps, and bodies found in the woods near the riverbank. Each incident added another layer of dread. When you string enough tragedies along in a single strip of iron and wood, people stop seeing coincidences and they start seeing ghosts. The fifth theory, actually this isn't a theory. Oh, it is. Sorry, I read my notes wrong. The fifth theory is the psychological crime, the fear that builds a legend. Sometimes a legend begins not with one crime, but with one fear. Old Alton Bridge sits in a pocket of the woods that gets strangely dark at night. Sound doesn't carry normally. Animals rustle in ways that feel deliberate. And fog rolls in sudden. When the wind hits the metal frame just right, it howls. A long, guttural moan that sounds almost like a warning. If you walk it alone, every instinct in your body tells you something is watching. Fear can be a crime too, against your nerves, your sanity, and your sense of safety. And fear demands a face. For Denton County, that face became a horned creature in the dark. A goat man, a spirit, a monster. A reminder of something terrible, even if no one can name exactly what that something is. So, is Goatman's Bridge haunted? Pretty sure we can get that answer from Karisa tonight, but I do have a fun little closing here that I'll tell you whether Karisa agrees with it or not. Love you. That depends on what you believe a haunting is. If you need a literal ghost, a red-eyed creature with hooves clacking on the iron beams, you might spend a lifetime searching and find nothing but your own heartbeat echoing in the night. Karisa doesn't agree with that. We'll find out. If you need a crime, a corpse swinging from a rope that history refused to record, you'll find legends, but you'll really struggle to find facts. But if you believe a haunting is the mark left on a place where people have suffered or disappeared or been forgotten or feared something so deeply they gave it a name, then yes, the Goatman's Bridge is haunted. Not by one, but by dozens. Not a single man, but by all the lost names buried in the woods. Not by facts, but by shadows shaped when facts go missing. Old Alton Bridge isn't just a landmark. It's a mirror reflecting everything people are afraid to talk about. Violence, racism, isolation, mental illness, death, cruelty, and the uncanny darkness of the human imagination. So if you ever visit, and the night is still, and the wind breathes across the metal, and the trees seem to hold their breath, you may find yourself wondering, just as generations have wondered before you, what happened here, what didn't, and what stories do we invent to fill the silence. Cross the bridge if you dare, but remember, the Goatman doesn't chase those who look for him. Only those who forget why the story exists at all. There is my little kind of true crime thing on the bridge. I thought it was very interesting that there actually is no historical record that we can find of Oscar Washburn, but I did think it was kind of interesting to dive into, okay, if he isn't real, if he didn't exist, I thought it was interesting to dive into these theories of what could have started that, what could have created this Oscar Washburn character, because even if as an individual that wasn't his name, that isn't who he was, he very much represents a very real thing that happened, a very real experience for people. And again, does not mean that there was not a lynching or a crime for sure that took place similar to the legend, but I don't like the idea, but I am very much fascinated by the idea that Oscar Washburn is a symbol of the racism and the violence and the suffering that happened around that bridge. Even if he wasn't an actual person, he remains that symbol. Why are you smiling at me like that,
I didn't know if I was able to talk yet. You just kept going. I was like, I don't know if it's time to talk.
No, you can't. I thought you were smiling at me like that because you're like, I'm gonna ruin your night.
Nope, I was politely waiting. No, because I wasn't sure which direction you were taking that, because I, just trying to figure out where to start my notes, because you've said all this, so I got to go down here.
Oh, so
I don't want to be on repeat here. So
I love you, Karisa.
It's okay.
See, this is when I say that we don't tell each other like everything that we're going to talk about. We literally do not, so that we can
yeah, I'm like
respond like authentically.
Like, I'm going in my notes. I'm like, well, can't say that. She said that. Okay, so you're talking. You offered some options from the tangible world as far as this legend growing, which I find to be interesting. That you gave like, oh, maybe it was this, maybe it was that, like the superficial world, creating things that would, in turn, create a Goatman's legend. So either way, this legend grew. Yeah. We know that this has grown and it's a big thing for that area. Also, fun fact, that is not the original bridge. The original bridge was torn down in the 80s. This is the 80s. They rebuilt a bridge right there. It's not in use. And there's another bridge, the New Alton Bridge, that people use. This is still in the old location, but it has been updated in the 80s. But they still don't use
y'all, why you tore it down? You made the spirits mad. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, but the legend was created way before that, though, technically.
Oh, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So the legend was there. So the legend, I assume, since we don't have record of the events, was kept alive orally. And a lot of legends were shared among the Black communities via folklore to keep these stories alive and relevant, especially with their religions and stuff. So when slaves were brought to America, they had to conform to Christianity to survive. That's why we get different versions of Christianity in the South, because it's a blend of African traditions and Christian traditions to create a new type of faith, but still to keep them, just to protect themselves at the same time, keep their own heritage alive. Kind of thought about that when I was writing my notes for this episode, because I think of the folklore to keep these stories of hate and things alive, so you don't forget the man. And I don't know if this original stories actually had a man's name to it, because a lot of the stories that I was reading from original traditions that were like told over time just talked about an African American man, and that later the name was attached. I don't know if that's true. That's the only thing I was getting.
Well, and that's why, and honestly, I think you and I actually might have talked about this too a little bit. That's why I had stated in there that, even if Oscar Washburn, that name, even if that didn't exist, it definitely does not necessarily mean that there wasn't a person who was the victim of a crime like this. Right. And it's very obvious. We look back in history, lynchings and things like that happened all the time, unfortunately. So it's very possible that we attach the name to somebody who didn't have one.
Right. So again, nevertheless, this old Altman's Bridge became the Goatman's Bridge, like you said, and it is now specifically a terrifying beacon to this space where something potentially happened. And if we're looking at it like the situation, so if we take the things that we know, that there was possibly a lynching of someone, that means that we're producing some pretty accurate emotions of anger
Oh, yeah.
from one side. Yeah. And this is
Lots of hatred, lots of really dark emotions.
Right. And so a lot of the legends talk about whoever this Goatman. Have you actually looked at pictures?
No.
Okay. Well, you should have.
Oh,
but,
my God.
And then I'll tell you why at the end. But this avenging creature, spirit, whatever we're going to decide this is said to despise racist and liars. But let's look at what racism is. It's hate.
Mm-hmm.
People of hate, people who deceive. So it doesn't like those things. That's what is told by the legends. Well, let's talk about those things that basically summon this creature, whether this is human or non-human or dead or whatever.
What have you, yeah.
Yeah. Something that's basically, driving the force of this. Something that was born essentially out of trauma, and something that we might think over ancient times might have those same echoes. So I wanted to kind of zoom out a little bit and talk about what if the Goatman, the entity, isn't just a local ghost or creature, but a new face on an old monster.
Chris, I knew you were going to do something like this.
Yes. What if this trauma in this place didn't create a spirit, but rather attracted something that was already in existence, waiting in the shadows, something that feeds on this type of energy?
Good Lord.
Time. Now listen, I'm going to go the soft route first. Let's give you the first one.
This woman, you guys, quick side note here. We hadn't even pressed record yet. All right. Mm-hmm. Before I read the wrong intro because we thought she sent me the wrong one. It was a whole escapade. But we hadn't even pressed record. And she's like, I have a really good twist for you on this one. I have a really good twist at the end. So I just want you to know.
Fun twist.
I've been waiting with bated breath for the past 30 minutes that I've been talking, and the extra 5 minutes before that too, just so you know.
Well, before we get to one of the last ones, I am going to have you look up the picture just so I can have your reaction, because you need to know what it looks like. Go ahead, but hold on. Oh, don't say a word until we get to the very last one I'm giving, because I just want you to look at it. I don't want you to go down any kind of rabbit holes with it. Just look at the picture of the Goatman Bridge entity. And it should be a black and white, grainy kind of image.
Okay, and I'm not saying anything yet, right?
Right, I just want you to have a visual reference to it. Okay, hopefully all of you have looked at this image and kind of get where I'm going.
If I could type.
Them fingernails being too long.
I know, I need you to file them down, Karisa.
This Sunday, you have an appointment. All right. As you're looking at that, I first want to address my one thought, because we are... I see that face.
Sorry.
All right, now turn off your phone.
Okay.
Don't look at him again until we come back to him.
Okay.
All right. 1, we are on a bridge. What kind of entity lives under a bridge?
A troll?
A troll.
Oh, I'm so happy you went there too.
So in Norse and Scandinavian folklore, trolls are the quintessential genius loci, the spirit of a specific place. They live under bridges, they live in caves or in dense forests, and they are fiercely territorial.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
You gotta pay the troll toll. They demand a toll. Not always in gold, and sometimes they ask for flesh before you pass. They embellish.
No big deal.
They are the embodiment of dangerous, untamable wilderness. And a bridge is a perfect symbol of civilization stepping on their world into their wilderness. And when you cross it, you have to pay respect or you're going to invite an attack. For me, I thought, okay, one idea was the troll for the Goatman that shares its territorial idea. It guards the bridge. It attacks those who intrude and challenge him. So the idea of a North American troll isn't so far-fetched at all.
No, it's not.
We've talked about entities being able to cross waters. If they exist in one section, they may exist in another. Mm-hmm. This is a perfect archetype for that type of creature to migrate and find a new home over here and adapt to new cultures. And, I read where people were honking horns across the bridge and be like, could you imagine being the troll being like, so disrespectful?
Like, oh my God, stop. Oh my God, stop.
The troll's like, I'm just so over this. And it responds with violence.
Yeah.
He's like, wakes up every morning and chooses violence.
It's like, okay, this is what you're going to do. Fine. You started it.
Stop crying about my grumpy old troll.
Oh, my Lord.
But if we're talking about a creature that doesn't just guard a place, but actively feeds on trauma, we have to look deeper. we have to look into the demonic realm. My favorite place to land my thoughts.
Careful saying that, Carissa.
Not to stay, but to land there and kind of scoop in and see what I can pick up. Like, let's see, is it you or is it you? What about you over there? Which of you soul-sucking demons are the soul-sucking squad?
Which member of the soul-sucking squad are we talking about today?
Right. Yes. We have this description. A half man, half beast hybrid with a connection to trauma. Mm-hmm. And this isn't just a random monster feature, okay? This is a core characteristic of a specific type of entity. There's no like 1-to-1 ratio that matches or specifically parallels to anything perfectly. But the most compelling, I might suggest, is a Jewish creature from mythology, Shadem. They're often depicted as these dangerous goat-like demons, kind of intermediaries between like human and the divine realms. But more importantly, they are the beings that thrive on human negativity. One of the things you have probably heard the word scapegoat.
Yes.
So traditionally, Jewish people would put all the sins at a certain time. And like they would put the blood and everything onto they would choose one goat and pour all the sins onto that one goat and run into the wilderness. That goat would escape into the wilderness and carry the sins away. It was a scapegoat.
Oh, okay.
That's where that comes from. Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So these types of entities, the Shadem, they are drawn to sites of pain, suffering, and moral transgression. The place of the Goatman's Bridge is like saturated with that psychic residue, essentially.
All of it.
Yeah, it's just like this residue of horrific lynching. Yeah, it would be basically a banquet for this type of entity. They're like, give it all to me.
It really would be.
Hungry. Yeah. So it wouldn't be guarding the bridge. It would be cultivating and feeding off the fear and anguish of everyone who visits. So that would be something, if people are going there and they feel that energy, that would be something like this type of entity would be there. You know, something that's pulling in people's energy and making them feel dread. Another candidate, and this is probably something a lot of people think of, is the faun or the satyr from the Greek and Roman mythology. Yeah. This is viewed in kind of a horror lens because classical satyrs are associated with like wine or revelry. You know, they're not always looked at as in a dark side. If we're to take it to a darker aspect and paint it in a different picture, there would be like uncontrollable lust in the wilderness and this connection to like panic, which fun facts that you know where panic comes from, right? The god Pan.
Yeah, I knew that.
So panic literally is meaning the terror induced by the god. Yeah, the god Pan. It's hard to say that, the Pan god. Without saying the Pan god, make it think like I'm flipping some pancakes.
I was about to say.
I'm flipping pancakes, the god Pan.
Pray to the pan gods before you start cooking.
Yes. But a corrupted, vengeful satyr, perverted from its original nature by centuries of fear and seclusion, and it could become this monster that lures people into the woods using mimicry or playing into their fears and stuff like that. That's possible. Wow. So, you know, I mean, I've heard whenever I was watching, I had my husband, and I watch the Ghost Adventures episode with crazy Zach Bagans.
And I have to know, knowing Dylan, and now quick side note, Dylan is so fun. Okay. He's such a quiet dude. Like when you first meet him, because he's more introverted. But once you get to know him, like he's actually very, very talkative. So the first time that he said something more than me, just like, hi, but he actually like started a conversation, I was like, I did it. Like I felt so honored. I was like, I made it. Dylan is my friend. Now, knowing Dylan, I want to know, what are his thoughts on Ghost Adventures? What was his like opinion on that episode?
We always start every episode with, I wonder how Zach is going to be possessed. Zach's going to be possessed by whatever this is.
Because I have to be honest, like knowing him, I would probably just die laughing hearing his commentary, because his commentary on just silly things like that.
We just kind of like we just talk when we're watching, like, oh yeah, what's he's like, what's Zach doing? Oh my gosh. But then if there's something that cool happens within a paranormal episode, he's like, whoa. And he does react because he thinks it's cool.
He does react.
Oh yeah, he does react.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. Anyway, sorry for that side note. I just had to know.
Oh, no. Side questions. It's fine. Unlocked. All right. Now that you've looked at this picture, does this picture look familiar to anything that is goat-headed and a symbol of the Western world? This is the one I first, when I saw the picture, This is the one I first immediately thought of when I saw the images that were supposed to be the beast under the bridge.
So, now I gotta pull it up again. Hold on. I'm sorry. My brain is not functioning beautifully right now. He's just gross, dude. I mean, when we talk about the Western, you're gonna say it, and I'm gonna be like, oh, duh. I'm not thinking of anything immediately, but...
Well, you may not know the name, but I'm going to give you the legend of this name. So the Baphomet. Have you ever heard of the Baphomet?
Oh, I know that word.
Okay.
I don't know anything about it, but I do know that word.
This is a symbol often mistaken for a demon. Was originally the picture designed to represent a balancing and a uniting of opposing forces in as a harmonious whole. This was actually an image that was imagined, and there were so many key points in history where this became more and more pushed to be an icon for a specific creature or a specific entity. And I'm going to bring you there. And I've said this throughout different episodes, how this being came to be and not known as the Baphomet. But let's do a little quick history.
Yeah,
Chapter
now that I'm
1.
looking at it, yes, I do know what this is.
Okay.
I didn't know the name, but I do know this.
You do know the name. You're going to know the name, and you're going to be like, oh, wait. Yes, you're going to know the name, because I'm going to walk you through this. So chapter 1, let's talk about the Templars, the Knights Templar.
Yes, Knights Templar.
They're very powerful, wealthy, and influenced the Catholic military, essentially, that was created to kind of hunt down heretics. There is speculation that somewhere along their travels, they kind of got a little dismantled and kind of got influenced by other religions or per se. And so some of them were tortured once they were captured. Once King Philip had them arrested, he basically had them tortured just like a lot of the heretics were, just like a lot of the witches were, those accused of witchery, I should say. They were tortured. The problem is we do not have their stories because they were killed. Because they died, we only have the torturers' journals of what they said.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay.
Okay, so a lot of imagery started to play into who these people began to seek after on their journeys. Now, there's no 100% proof, but some speculate the Baphomet was a mispronunciation of a French word that meant Mohammed. Was it Islamic? Or was it something else entirely different that other human beings were seeing in the woods? Okay, let's fast forward. Now, that's the 14th century. The Templar idol, we'll call that the first chapter of this creature's imagination. The imagery of this creature, where it's coming, pieces are being put together. And again, that book will tell you how, through time, different torturers pieced together what this entity would eventually look like to create a staple view of this being. Those listening, I hope you're following and you've been listening and you kind of know where I'm going with this. Then in the 19th century, this creature was reimagined. This is the most important part of understanding the Baphomet's symbolic meaning, because this figure we recognize today was not born or created prior, but in the 1850s. This is when this started happening. In the 1850s, this creature by a French occultist and a ceremonial magician, his name was Alphonse Levi.
Yeah.
And he wrote a book, Transcendental Magic, Its Doctrine and Ritual. And so he created a now famous image of this sabbatic goat, or the Baphomet of Mendes. And this synthesized its vast pool of esoteric resources. We have alchemy, which is the union of opposites. We have the Gnosticism, which is gnosis, which means knowledge. We have philosophy, concepts like karma and balance. These are not one person's faith. These are like cherry picking from different religions to create one image. You have pagan deities like the Greek god Pan, nature, Egyptian deities. He took all of these and he did not intend for it to become this creature to be worshipped. Designed it as a visual textbook of occult philosophy. So it was meant to be kind of like a symbol of occult philosophy. There was the head of the goat symbolizing intelligence, perseverance, and the sign of the scapegoat, as I earlier told you what that was, the bearer of sins. The torch. This is between the horns that represents the divine light of intellect and enlightenment. There were the arms, which had the sign from above and one below, which is also what the Buddha does, by the way. This principle in this creature that he's putting together is a principle that is like the microcosm of human reflection of the universe, okay? We've got above and below. The words that are on this, they kind of solve the formula for the cycle of spiritual transformation that we're all trying to figure out. Okay, there's the beast, this representing the union of this masculine and feminine energies that kind of generate the power of nature. You know, when you have this human-like beast, we're combining these things. There's all these different things that are on there, you know, that have symbols of medicine and force, of energy. There's the pointing of up and down, like I said, which reinforces the whole like heaven and hell, or celestial and life forces, and earthly forces. But his ultimate goal was not to create an image of the devil.
Okay, so you were going there.
I was going there.
Because I was sitting there, I was like, it's probably the devil. But I was like, it can't be that easy. And then I was like, but it probably is that easy. And then I was like, it's not. It was that easy.
He was not trying to create the image of the devil.
But he did.
Chapter 3 of this this entity's creation and icon, the 20th century, we've got the Satanic Panic. This is the symbol of rebellion. Levi's complex symbol was eventually simplified and repurposed. We have it's linked to Satanism in the 1960s. The Church of Satan was looking for a powerful symbol that was recognizable and kind of was like new to religion, which kind of championed this individualism and like this rebellion against arbitrary authority. The Baphomet, it was perfect. It was a goat-like, you know, it had all these symbols, and Christianity had already adopted this as the devil. Okay, there's this thing that it had already been adopted as like the new heretical opposer to the church. Okay, he literally cherry-picked something from every religion to create this entity that now people will claim is what something is. This is not a single image of something. Okay, this creature did not exist. It was made by someone trying to bring in kind of a perfect union of everybody. Like, I want something from you guys. Like, everybody bring something to the potluck. Here, we're doing it.
That's what it's like. It's the religion potluck. All right, come on.
We're going to symbolize the religious potluck right here. I'm going to bring something from everybody. You don't bring 2 bags of chip. We don't need any more chips.
We don't need any more chips, no. Don't just bring plates. You bring a food.
Yes. This sigil literally became so recognizable. It's kind of crazy when people think that that's what the devil looks like. But because of this adoption, is now overwhelmingly seen as a public primary figure for Satanism. It is used to represent religious, like oppression to the tyranny and like rejection from mainstream religion and all that stuff.
Wow.
But it's not even real. Like, it's not what, if you truly wanted to go back and see what the devil is, I told you what the devil was in the Hebrew text. It was a winged serpent. It was a dragon. Yes.
A dragon.
Just dragon.
A dragon.
I learned to train my dragon.
I was about to say, it's interesting that you say that when we sit here and, you know, of course, right now we have like the Fourth Wing series and whatnot. So fantasy fantasizes all this stuff about dragons and how magical they are and this and that and the other. And we sit there and we're like, oh, the devil is this goat thing. When in reality, if you actually really go looking for it, the actual symbolism or like imagery, I guess, of the devil in the Bible apparently is a dragon. And the goat thing is something that we made. I think there's an interesting rabbit hole we could go down there, and I'm not going to go down it because you're just going to make it worse because you're going to tell me how I'm right. But I'm just going to leave that where it is.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Essentially, what we need to take from here is there are so many goat-like deities or godlike figures throughout the history of human beings. You know, so is it this, which one is it? Is it this territorial troll? Is it a trauma-feeding shidam? Is it some corrupt creature from nature? Is it a demonic predator that's preying on our fears as people step into that space? But the most terrifying answer is probably that the legend is so powerful because it kind of is fueled by all of these different archetypes of what people think they're seeing. You know, specifically the trauma of that location. Like, if you're bringing your own trauma to that location, something's feeding off of it, and it's kind of like that tuning fork. It's going to connect in. I feel like a lot of times with paranormal stuff, if you have a lot in your mind that is already resonating negative or fear, you're going to start connecting and magnetize. You're going to like almost be magnetically connected to what that is.
To
if you don't
whatever's
have that,
going
you're
on
not
in
going
that
to
area.
see or
Yeah.
hear or feel anything for the most part. But either way, attracting and giving more into this fear will always have boundaries that will be crossed between the realms. So, yeah, fear that the darkness isn't empty is a lot of times what keeps us from turning off the lights.
Yeah. That's a mood.
Yeah.
That's why my husband, whenever he's been gone a lot recently with all of his work stuff. And so this man, I love him so much. He got a bunch of like little night lights to put in the house. I know that they're actually because I tell him that I get scared whenever he's not there. It's just me. It's all my animals. He's like, Jessica. He's like, well, you have all the animals. And I was like, yeah. And every single one of them has marbles in their brain. They're not going to do anything. Like,
Yeah,
Ellie
like
might
looking
protect
in your eyeball
me.
right now. So it's like,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. I'm like, Ellie might protect me, but Sushi, if there's an intruder, he's gonna be like, oh my God, hello, you're here for me. Like, he's not a guard dog.
Well, hopefully we gave this episode some justice to Hayden, Brandy, and Sean. I will be interested to hear from them. Hayden, make sure you text me, girl.
Yeah, please let me know what they say. I'm interested to know what their thoughts are too. I think this was a really fun little rabbit hole for us to go down because it's one of those where, like, when somebody says the Goatman, like the Goatman's Bridge or the Goatman, there's not a lot of people who will have like no idea what it is. Like that name, at least, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I've heard about that. It's some kind of supernatural thing.
Yeah, but there's a couple Goatman stories. There's one in on the East Coast too.
Okay, we don't need to go there.
This one is the Goatman's Bridge. There's a Goatman, like, yeah, there's one I think in Maryland maybe or something. There's another
there's
one
a
on the East Coast.
Mothman somewhere up there too, right?
Yeah, that's near us. That was in our area of Ohio. Like,
yeah, of course it was.
Well, it was Point Pleasant, West Virginia. But on the bridge
that's close by then. Okay.
But that connects Ohio to the bridge. It's the bridge that connects the two. Yeah. A lot of Southeast Ohio people are familiar with the Mothman. There's Point Pleasant. There is the Mothman in like Ironton and all that. That's all.
Yeah, I was going to say
the
they have like all the, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, Carissa's out here like, I have a connection to everything that we talk about.
Well, it is 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Oh, and 6 degrees of Carissa delay, actually.
All right. Well, this has been a good episode. I hope you all had fun with this. And tell us some of your local stories. We'd like to cover them. We have a few on our list that people have given us in the past, and we're going to cover them in the future. But if you got some, definitely email us at info@theparallaxpodcast.com, or you can go to our website, theparallaxpodcast.com, click on those 2 little cute icons, and follow us on our social media. But until then, I'm Karissa.
And I'm Willow.
Thanks for listening.
Goodbye, mortals.